This is the Akai CS-M40R stereo cassette deck. It's a really cool mid-tier deck that I think has some nice features that make it a really fun choice for people who are new to cassettes. It's also surprisingly easy to work on. So today, I'm going to show you guys all the interesting features and quirks that it has, as well as some interesting points about microphones and how they connect to these old machines. I also really want to cover how to replace the pinch rollers because I had to do that on this machine. So let's get into it. I love the look of this thing. I get a sort of industrial vibe from it. It was produced from 1980 to 81, and it sat right in the middle of Akai's line of cassette players retailing for $399, which is around $1,300 in today's money. And I think it does really well for being a mid-tier deck. When you power it on, you get a nice warm backlight in the cassette carriage, which I appreciate since not every tape deck lights the tape up. We also get a pair of VU meters on a vacuum fluorescent display, and my favorite part, these green chevrons. Those are direction indicators because this tape deck has auto reverse. Now, I've never had a chance to show a deck with auto reverse, so I'm particularly excited about this one. Let's try playing a tape. The door opens nice and smooth when you hit the eject button. We'll insert the tape and close it. The transport controls are all on the bottom attached to these big mechanical keys. Even though the mechanism is really heavy, they're very smooth to operate, and I like the sound that they make. You can see the VU meters bouncing with the signal from the audio. But now, are you ready for this? Watch. Now it's playing the other side of the tape. That's cool all on its own, but the best part is that it'll automatically do that when it reaches the end. In fact, you can select what the tape does when it runs out. It can stop at the end of side A, it can reverse and play side B and then stop, or it can play both sides continuously if you want to bother your neighbors with loud Christmas music in the middle of July. If you want to use headphones, you've got a 1/4-inch headphone jack here at the bottom with a volume knob that controls the volume to the front and rear outputs. Now, this would normally be hooked to an amplifier, and that probably has a headphone jack too, but this way you don't have to power on your entire system to listen privately. It also serves to let you preview a tape while something else is playing if you're trying to record something, and that's really helpful. Next to that, you have your tape selector. It gives you options for Type 1 normal cassettes, Type 2 chrome oxide tapes, or Type 4 metal tapes. The bias and equalization apply to both the playback and recording functions, so you'll want to always set them according to the tape type that you're using. I should note that this machine doesn't automatically detect the tape type. You have Dolby B noise reduction, which again applies to both the recording and playback. But did you notice that it has 2 on settings? That's another interesting function of this machine. But to explain that, we need to get to the recording features, so let's put together a little basic stereo setup. We need an amp, some basic speakers, a CD player which you may recognize, and a radio tuner. You'll see why in a minute. Now, if I want to make a mixtape with songs from my friend's old NorCal punk bands, that's pretty straightforward. Insert a tape, press pause, then play and record to activate the VU meters. Adjust your input levels to peak at around 3 and release the pause key. You're recording. Now, I specified 3 for a reason. Do you see that little Dolby logo right at the 3 position? When I engage the Dolby noise reduction, the circuitry is calibrated on this deck for peaking at exactly that point. That's supposed to produce the best results, at least according to the manufacturers. And after fiddling with it for a while, that does seem to concur with my own experience. So now what's up with the 2 different Dolby positions? Well, that is also a multiplex filter for recording FM broadcasts. The switch allows you to engage Dolby with or without that filter. I touched on this in a previous video, but essentially the 19 kHz pilot signal that's present in most FM broadcasts, and which tells the tuner that it's a stereo signal, can screw with the Dolby noise reduction on the tape deck, making weird pulsing effects or a high-pitched whine. The multiplex filter allows the machine to remove that 19 kHz pilot signal, which is sometimes still present in the output of older radio tuners. Newer or digital tuners like the one I'm showing you are usually pretty good about filtering it out themselves before they output the signal, but not always. So if you're using an older tuner or just a cheapo one, this filter will remove that pilot signal before it goes to the Dolby circuitry and gets recorded. To the right of all that is a pair of microphone inputs. There's a little bit to talk about here. First of all, they're each 1/4-inch monaural inputs. If you want to record a stereo signal, you have to plug each channel in separately. But what's interesting about this setup is if you put a single mono input on the left and nothing on the right, it'll automatically spread that signal across both the left and right channels. Inside the right mic jack is a tiny switch that will engage and disengage this feature when you plug something in. Watch. See how the signal disappears on the right when I insert a cable with no input? It'll appear again when I unplug it. Neat, right? Now, these jacks are not powered. They require your microphone to either generate its own power, like in the case of my shotgun mic, which has its own battery, or they need a dynamic microphone which can produce a sufficient signal using just the physical motion of the little element that vibrates. Condenser mics, which require an external power source called phantom power, won't work with this. I'm sure a lot of you already know what all those terms mean, but for those that don't, we can break microphones down into two very general types, dynamic and condenser. A dynamic microphone is passive, meaning it doesn't require an external power source. A condenser microphone, on the other hand, does require an external power source to function. Now, most mics will specify on the box or the mic itself what they are, but if it doesn't, there are a couple of ways to tell them apart. The cables are the most obvious. A dynamic microphone will only have two terminals, a positive and a ground. They'll have a single insulated band on the plugs separating the terminals. A condenser mic, which requires a power source, will have three terminals, a positive, a negative, and a ground. Those will have two insulated bands. Now, admittedly, that only applies to 1/4-inch audio plugs, which are built into the microphone. XLR plugs look identical. Now, just because I think it's interesting, let me show you something. This is a 2-terminal adapter for a dynamic mic, though it still has 3 terminals on the back where it hooks to an XLR cable. With a multimeter, you can see that the terminal on the end is connected to the number 2 pin. The sleeve is connected to the number 1 and number 3 pin. Now, I don't have a 3-terminal XLR adapter, but I have these cables that work the same way. You can see the tip is attached to the number 2 like before, but the middle terminal is now connected to the number 3 pin, and the sleeve is connected to the number 1. So that extra middle terminal is able to supply power to a condenser microphone if need be. However, since this tape deck only has 2 terminals inside the jacks, a condenser microphone won't work. Unfortunately, like I said, if you have a microphone with a detachable cable, the XLR port will look identical. However, you can get clues from the context as well. A mic that you use on stage or for public speaking will usually be dynamic. Anything like this that you use in a studio setting will often require phantom power. If that's still too vague, you can just Google the model number of the mic. And if it's so cheap that it doesn't have a model number, it's probably dynamic. One last point on these microphone ports, I promise. They're expecting a very quiet signal, much lower than the line level signal that would come from your amplifier. That means that if you try to plug your phone into these and play music directly into them, it'll be way too hot and it'll be really distorted. So if you want to use your phone to record to a tape, plug your aux cord into the amp or the line-in port on the back. Now you do have 2 inputs for an audio signal, the ones on the front and the line-in ports on the back. Those are where you hook up an amplifier or any other normal line level input for recording. In the front, you have this little button to switch between the 2 inputs. Unlike some tape recorders, you can't record from the line-in ports and the mic ports at the same time. The big knob on the far right is your recording level. That, like with any cassette player, is how you adjust the volume of whatever you're going to record so that it records properly onto your tape. Coming back to that little Dolby logo on the VU meter, when you record a tape, you'll want to set your levels so that they're peaking right at that Dolby logo. This button is the record mute button with its corresponding red LED indicator. When you press it, it'll mute the recording by inserting a blank space onto the tape instead of whatever's coming in through the inputs. It doesn't mute the signal going to the VU meters though, so you can still have a visual reference of the signal going in. Do with that what you will. Also, it's a momentary switch, which means it's only active when you're pressing it. I'm going to demo this thing for you, but first, let's open it up and look at the inside. To get it open, just remove the 3 screws on either side and these 2 in the back. I have to tell you, I had this thing apart probably 6 times while trying to get it running. It wouldn't pull the tape through the transport mechanism. I replaced every belt, every rubber tire, lubed up just about every moving part, and I was still totally lost. Then I looked at the pinch roller. It looked passable, but if you compare the old ones to a new one, it obviously wasn't. That ended up being the problem. After all that other stuff, I replaced the pinch roller and it worked perfectly. Now, that's not to say that the belts, the little tires, and the sliding surfaces didn't need the maintenance that they got, because they absolutely did. But the final culprit was this little guy. And that's actually really easy to replace, which I'm going to show you right now. First, you remove the front panel by removing these top 3 screws and the ones on the bottom. The front panel should just slide off. That'll give you access to the front of the cassette transport. Make sure that all the keys are up first. Then, if you look closely, there's a little metal arm on each side with a pinch roller for the forward and for the backward direction. They're held on with a very tiny E-clip. Carefully remove the clip and take note of how this spring is attached. The whole arm should just slide out. Once it's out, you can see that the pinch roller is held in place with a little metal pin. That pin should just come out if you press on it from the side. That'll release the roller. Just put a new one on, then do the exact reverse of what you did to get it off. Just don't lose that E-clip like I did. I had to buy a whole pack of them on Amazon because I couldn't find where it flew in the studio. I looked for over an hour, including vacuuming the floor and digging through all the desert dust. The main belt assembly is easy to change too. Just pop it off the motor pulley and slip it off the big flywheel. I just undid this little nylon screw back here and slipped the belt off through the space that it left. It's easier than disassembling the whole mechanism. Just make sure that you screw the nylon screw back in the same amount of turns that you unscrewed it, because it keeps the flywheel and the capstan in the correct position. Some of these machines were designed to work with multiple voltages in different parts of the world. There would be a little voltage selector right here. Mine was only ever meant for the North American market, so it doesn't have one. But you can see you have access to all the switches and dials in the front, as well as that long record switch. If you just picked up one of these machines, I always recommend hitting everything with some contact cleaner before you use it. Just basic maintenance that'll ensure everything works reliably. There are also 3 fuses up here if it ever stops working suddenly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and then let's do a quick demo with it. I'll just pop in a tape, hook a microphone up, never mind that this is the cheapest microphone ever, adjust the levels, and we'll hit record. This is a dynamic microphone. It's the only one that I have. It's also extremely cheap. My wife bought it as a prop for a costume one time, and we kind of thought it was going to get ruined, so we bought the cheapest one that we could find. You'll have to forgive the terrible sound quality. It's the mic, not the cassette player. I wanted to show you what it was like going directly from the microphone into the machine through the mic input. But that's not really a fair demo, so I'm going to reconfigure everything so that I can record directly from my Tascam into the tape machine. Now this is what it sounds like routed from the Shure mic into my Tascam HDP2, and then out of there into the cassette player, then played back into the HDP2 to get the full recording. One last point I forgot to mention. This has a timer function. That works in conjunction with audio timers like I featured in my previous video. To see the full functionality of that, I recommend watching that video because I use it with this specific tape machine, and that's an unusual and interesting piece of equipment in its own right. So that's it. Once I have this video out and finished, I think this is going to become my primary cassette player because I love the auto reverse functionality, and the little green cassette counter just makes me happy for some reason. So I'd like to ask you guys, if you have a cassette player, what kind do you have? Do you use it very often? Is it your favorite one that you've had? And when or where did you get it? I'd love to know what you guys are running in your setups. Let me know in the comments. But until next time, keep thrifting and stay metal.